Hi everyone, my name is Teeming Boon. Thank you for joining me tonight. I'm the manager for student recruitment at the Faculty of Medicine, Dentistry and Health Sciences. Very glad that you can all join us tonight. We have a couple of students that would like to share their experience with you. But before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this event is taking place, the land of Wurundjeri, and pay respect to the elders and families. Now, what I'll do as well is I'll run through a little bit of information about the structure of the course, because I think there's a few things that I'd like to clear up before we actually go into the student experience, so make sure that you understand what we'll be covering. So I'm just going to switch my camera off for 1 second. So the basic course structure of the degree, it is a 2-year coursework degree, meaning that you will undertake subjects where you will sit tests, go to classes, have tutorials, potentially practicals as well, with a research project. As you can see, for a 2-year degree, even though it is a coursework degree, it has a large research project, 1 year and 1 quarter, which makes up quite a sizable project, and 3/4 of the year would be in the coursework subjects. The coursework subjects are made up of 3 different areas. So there'll be the course subjects, professional skill subjects, and discipline subjects, which I will explain to you in a little bit more detail. The professional skill subjects are essentially subjects that are more leaning towards the business side of things. You can see these are ones that I've listed on online. The reasoning behind having these professional skill subjects is to give our biomedical students, our science students, a broader mindset and different skills that can complement their science skills when they actually start working. So things like commercialization of science, for example, is to get the students to think about, apart from doing the research, how do we actually take it through the steps from concept through to production or commercialization. So it's starting to get students to think about it in that sense, where some of these other skills, for example, you might start off as a researcher, but later on, you may become a supervisor or a team leader, and you may become a manager as well. At that point in time, the different skills that you'll need, apart from being a researcher, would be more in line with a manager in a business of sorts. So you might have to deal with contracts, you might have to deal with HR, you might have to deal with communications, you might have to deal with advertising, you might have to deal with procurement of equipment, for example. So there's a lot of other skills that's actually required as you move up as well, because essentially you might be managing a lab, for example. So some of these skills will be useful, and it starts to broaden the skill set of our students. And we feel that this is really, really important. Students generally would undertake 2 subjects in the professional skills subjects, but depending on what you choose, depending on the different areas that you choose, which I'll explain, you may have to do a little bit more, but generally you do about 2 professional skill subjects. There are 3 specializations within the Master of Biomedical Science. There's the discovery, which is more along the sciences pathway, the vision science, which is self-explanatory, I think. And the new one that recently started was the enterprise specialization. And that's the one I've actually put in front of you there. The core subjects, there are actually 3 core subjects, and some of them are like special topics in management, is more leaning towards the business side once again. There are 2 subjects that you must do as part of the project, professional skill subjects, and you have 1 subject that you can choose from the elective list, which is the disciplines electives. Whereas, for example, if you were going to choose the discovery specialization, you would have 1 core subject, which is the introduction to biomedical research. You would have a choice of the ones that I've just shown you of the different professional skill subjects, which you would choose 2 of. and then you would be able to choose 3 subjects from the elective list, which is the different disciplines. There are many subjects to choose from, and I think at times it's probably quite difficult for students to be able to choose between those different subjects. You can find those subjects online. They range from acoustics to stem cells. So depending on what your area of interest is, and depending on what research project you undertake, you would choose the appropriate coursework subjects to complement that research project. The different discipline areas that we have, these are the basic ones that we actually have, and they're linked to different institutes as well, which I've left out, but the ones that you might know of would be the Doherty Institute, the Bio 21, there's the Florey as well. So there's a few different institutes that's actually linked to these different disciplines. This is to give you a rough idea of what kind of areas you might be coming from. I often get students asking me if their discipline is a relevant area, because that's part of the requirement, is that you need to have a relevant area. Basically, if you come from life sciences or biomedical sciences, that would probably be a relevant area. It gets a little bit grayer when it's things to do with like zoology, for example, and you're looking something towards like more recently like zoonotic diseases, for example, then it sort of crosses the path a little bit. But it depends on what kind of subjects you may have done in zoology, for example, and also if there is actually a research project that sort of bridges the gap between the two as well. So, but generally speaking, if you've done biomedical sciences, health sciences, you'll be most likely be able to qualify to apply. But once again, it depends on the research project as well. This is a sample course structure that I want to point it out to you. Sometimes these things on our websites can be too many options, and it can be a little bit confusing. So I'm just breaking it down for you. There are 5 different coursework plans, and this is to give students a little bit more flexibility on how they actually study this course. There is the discovery, either early coursework or balance, enterprise, early coursework or balance, or division sciences. The difference between the early coursework and balance is, as I've highlighted there, the early coursework shows that you do more coursework at the start and it slowly tapers off into your second year. Whereas if you choose the balance, then it's a bit more spread out between the 2 years. So it's basically down to your preference. With semester 2 2020, I can tell you that there's a little bit of uncertainty, especially with what's happening with the coronavirus. If you do choose to study for semester 2, you will have the ability to study the first semester. So for 6 months, the first semester will be online, and you will be able to shuffle your research projects into the second semester as well. So keep that in mind if you're looking at doing this course. The course requirement is something that I also want to touch on as well. The basic requirements are an undergraduate degree with a major in a relevant area, as I've already stated, roughly about 65% average, and that's equivalent to the Melbourne grades. And that's something that you don't really have to worry about. If you're studying in Melbourne, then it's quite simple. If you study at another university, then that's something that we will calculate on your behalf, depending if you've studied from overseas or within Australia. That's something that we would do for you, so you don't have to worry. But basically, if you're passing well, is probably what you'd be looking at. But to be able to gain an offer, you will need to get a support from a supervisor, very much like if you're applying for a PhD. So, but what does that sort of mean? Because the process sometimes can be a little bit different for different parts of the world and different universities as well. So I'd just like to run through how you actually apply, so that so you're fully aware of what the process is, because it's not as straightforward as just putting an application in. It is almost sort of like applying for a PhD, but slightly different format. So you don't get confused. So there's a two-step process where you would submit your application online with your transcripts. If you have a grading scale, if you're applying from overseas, your English, something to satisfy our English, because you will need to satisfy the university's English language requirements for this course. It is an IELTS of 6.5, no band less than 6. If when you apply, they will assess you to see if you're academically eligible. If you are academically eligible, then you'll be given access to our student data project database, which is called Sonia. When you have that, then you need to put in your preference. But when the process of putting into Sonia is, you need to identify your research area based on what you may be interested in. Hopefully you would have had a chance to do some research when you were in your undergraduate degree. You would search for available projects. So when they send you the project database, you can actually have a look to see what projects are available, who the academics are. And then what you'll do is, when you see something that you're actually interested in, then you'll contact an academic supervisor and try to gain their support. Now, you wouldn't put in your preference yet because you're still investigating at this point in time. So what you'll do is you'll contact the supervisors, you'll introduce yourself, explain the research area that you're interested in doing, the course that you're applying for, which is the Master of Biomedical Science, and show that you sort of understand the research that the academic is undertaking, so that they can compare that your interests and their research is aligned. Okay, so it's almost like if you're applying for a job, essentially, when you're contacting the supervisors. So they may want to know what is, where you studied, what your grades were, what your research project was, what your proposal might be. So it's a bit of a conversation with the supervisors, because essentially this degree is a pathway to go on to do a research degree where it's fully just research, and generally a PhD as well. Okay, the reason why a lot of students get confused is they get stuck at the first stage and they are not able to get a reply from a supervisor, much like sometimes when you're applying for a PhD. You really have to persist and really reassess how you are approaching the supervisors, because you have to understand that they are very busy and they are they're supervising other students doing research. They probably have different hats on where apart from just a researcher as well, so they might be teaching as well. So in your correspondence, please be open about your motivation, why you want to actually do this degree as well. Don't lie, obviously. If you're happy just to do this degree, just to test it out, then say so. But really show that you understand the research area of the academic. I think that's one of the things that really sets the students apart. When you submit your correspondence from the supervisor, so when they say, yes, I support your application for the Master of Biomedical Science, what you'll do is then you will submit that through Sonia, the system, and as soon as you submit that, we will know, and then we'll be able to process that to give you an outcome, which is an offer to study. So this is a two-step process. This degree, I suppose, one of the things actually I've just remembered that was asked as part of the registration process was, what's the difference between an honors and the Master of Biomedical Science? So the honors is a one-year degree, so it's shorter and it's purely research, generally speaking, and it's to go towards PhD as well. Now, the 2 points for an honors and a Master of Biomedical Science is that if your undergraduate degree is not an H1, if you're not getting high distinctions in your undergraduate degree and you do an honors year, they would take that into consideration as well. So if you're not doing very well in your bachelor's degree, if you do an honors year, when you apply for a PhD, they will look at both your honors and your bachelor's degree. So keep that in mind. If your grades are excellent in the bachelor's degree and then you do an honors, that's absolutely fine to be able to apply for a PhD. But if you if your grades are not H1, then they're not high distinction, and you want a chance to really have a taster of doing research, if you want to be able to prove yourself to be able to get to a PhD, then doing a 2-year Master of Biomedical Science will give you a large research project where you can get to know the academics. And also, when you apply for a PhD, the assessment will be purely based on the 2-year Master of Biomedical Science. They will not look at your grades from your bachelor's degree. So that's one of the benefits of actually doing this. So please keep that in mind. And that is all I'm actually going to cover for the degree itself. I'm going to what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to bring the students back online. We have Gina and Haitian, and what we'll do is we'll have a few questions for them to sort of share what their experience has been like and what their motivation has been like as well. So I'm just going to share my screen. I'm going to show my face if it's okay. Hi guys, can you hear me? I probably have to unmute you actually.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Hi.
Hey, maybe you guys can introduce yourself, if it's all right.
Yep. So, hello everyone. I'll go first, sorry.
Sure.
My name is Gina. Yeah, I'm now doing my 2nd year of this Master of Biomedical Science degree, and I'm in a discovery specialization. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Hi, my name is Haitian. So now I'm in the 2nd semester of my 1st year, and then I'm doing my research at the Florida Institute. Yeah, that's still also with a discovery discipline as well.
Great. Thanks you guys for joining us. I guess we'll get straight into it because we're running short of time. I talked a little bit longer than I probably should have. So I guess first question that I was asked by some students part of registration was, why did you choose the Master of Biomedical Science in the first place? I mean, there's probably other degrees and other options. What made you choose this degree?
Yeah,
I'll
go for it. So after my graduation, basically I have 3 options. So there's like 2 master degrees at UniMelb and 1 master degree at Monash. So the 2 master degrees at UniMelb is like biotech and the biomedical science. And because I realized that if I take the biotechnology, that degree is not like 100% guarantee entry to PhD. So that's pretty much the reason I went for the biomedical science. And as for the honors, because I didn't do very well in my undergrad degree, so if I do honors, I was like 100% not going to the PhD.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that some students forget because they don't really know how they assess PhDs. So yeah, it's really good to point out. Gina?
Yeah, I actually had quite a struggle between the honors and master's degree when I was just finished my bachelor's. I guess the major reason why I chose for master's is because a master's degree really gives you more options, because the honors degree is only recognized in like Australia and the UK. But if you want to apply for a PhD position in the US, then probably you need to do the master's degree. I mean, I was not 100% sure what to do after the master's, but I guess doing this will give me more options when I finish it.
Yeah, no, it's true actually. One of the things that we sort of forget is how portable our degrees can be, because I think people are more familiar with the master's level than honors. I think parts of Asia or New Zealand and Australia are a little bit more familiar with honors. But we sometimes forget that other parts of the world, masters is more common now, I think.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. So the next question I want to ask you was, what's a normal week look like for you guys? Obviously, we're in a slightly different position at this point in time because your normal week is probably not exactly the same as what it probably would be normally. But what would be a normal week if you were, normally before the coronavirus? Gina?
Yeah. For this year, since I'm turning into my second year, I only have one course doing. So basically, every day I go to my research institute. You just mentioned the Bio21 Institute. Yeah, and because for us, the master students, we will be allocated an office space in the institute. So I think it's quite different from what we did in the bachelor's. We're more like a research worker compared to a student. Like we go to the institute and do the lab work every day. And if you need to go to the campus to like have a lecture or tutorial, then we go to the campus. But most of the time we spend is lab based in the research institute. Yeah, I guess it's the same for Hettian.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same. Just wake up and go to school, go to your lab, and doing your job.
Well, I suppose that's part of the training as well. If you end up doing a PhD as well, I think your week will probably look very similar. So this is almost like a training ground before you actually get into either a research job or a research study, I guess. Let me see. So yeah, can you tell us about the specialization that you chose? You already told us which ones you're doing, and why did you choose it?
I went for the discovery specialization, and because I think the vision science one is limited to the student who is doing the vision science only. I'm majoring in biochem, so it's not one of my options. But the reason why I choose the discovery instead of the commercialization is it's pretty much related to my future plan. So after my graduation, I'm planning to apply for a PhD degree or probably working in the research team in industry. And that's pretty much the main reason I didn't go for the enterprise specialization, because probably those skills that probably would not benefit me a lot comparing to the skills I earned in the discovery specialization.
Yeah, I guess as I said, I was not very sure what to do after my master's. So I guess the other stream called the enterprise stream, it is quite defined for those who really want to do business after master's. So for that specialization, all the course structure is quite defined, I guess. Yeah. So, but on the other hand, for the discovery stream, we can choose. I think we have more options. We can choose for more different subjects. Like even you do the discovery stream and you are interested in the business part, you can still choose for those business related subjects. Yeah, I guess that's why.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, it depends on what really suits your purpose, I think, at the end of the day. What about I talked about the professional skills subjects. Which ones did you guys take? Because you had a few choices there. Was it good? Do you think it'll be useful later on? Yeah, can you just walk through what subjects you actually chose? Because you probably had a bit of a choice.
I did one communication for research scientists, and another one is called statistics for research workers. Yeah. Actually, I highly recommend the communication subject to everyone here, especially for international students, because what we might have been overlooked at the past is that for a research worker, in addition to the professional skills, like your lab work skills, the communication skill is also very important. Like if you want to do a PhD, probably for all the PhD students, they are all very good at doing experiments. But what makes you different to others is your communication skills. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah. Hi, Tim.
So I did another communication course called Science Communication, and that one is
Yeah.
also highly recommended by me as well. So by doing that subject, I had a chance to do a sort of like a mini project in the Vic Health, the Victoria government, the health promotion organization. And so basically, that one is quite similar to the communication for research scientists, but that one is like more focusing on the skills that we will need for doing it, like working in a team. So there's like a group of 4 people for us to doing a mini project there. So that's really useful skills to learn.
Yeah, I think definitely the science communication is an area particularly that I think is really needed, because I think sometimes science students or biomedical science students tend to have their own language as well, and they understand each other really well. When you put them all into the same room, and they all communicate really well. But I think when they have to actually explain it to board of directors, if they need to explain the different research to sort of support public health, for example, to be able to send it out to the masses as such, I think that's definitely a different skill that sometimes science students sort of need, that additional thinking, particularly at a tertiary level as well. So, and they do actually make it quite fun from what I've heard as well. So I'm glad you guys did find that fun to do as well, actually. Let's have a look. So your discipline subjects, if you did a discovery, that means you were able to choose 3 different subjects. And now that you, hi Ten, you're in your 2nd semester, and Gina, you'll probably be in your 2nd year now. So that means you probably would have finished all your coursework subjects. Is that right?
Yeah.
So what discipline subjects did you choose? Because, sorry, what was that?
No, sorry. I'm taking 3 this semester, and I've done 3, so pretty much.
All finished.
Yeah, all finished. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's quite a big list. I think when you have a look on the choices, how do you guys choose it? Was that based on your research? Was it based on your interests? Was that based on discussion with the academic? Or how do you guys choose those subjects? Where do you start?
So basically, all of us are starting from the long list. So I just go through the list and probably pick out like 10 of them that I'm either interested in or related to my research subject, research project. And then I just bring the list to my supervisor and had a chat with him. And he basically helped me to pick up like which one is helpful to my research project.
Oh, that's quite handy.
Yeah, I also had a discussion with my supervisor before everything started. Yeah, he asked me to do one of the subject because he teaches that subject. And yes, it is closely related to my research project. Yeah, it's called biomolecular structure determination or something. Yeah. So he only requires me to do this one specifically, but he didn't mind me doing anything else. So I just chose the other 2 based on my own interest. I chose I chose one genetically modified organism, and another one was the bioinformatics subject. Because I remember last year when the CRISPR-Cas9 human baby was coming out, and that was a quite popular topic at the moment. So that's why I chose the GMO subject. And for the bioinformatics one, I think it's a really important skill for us. Like whatever disciplines you're involved in, probably that's one of the most important skills for all the biomedical students to help our research in the future. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it was discussion with the supervisors to see if they had a preference that can help the research project. Really, if not, if there isn't, then they might just say to you, actually, just go nuts and just choose whatever you like, basically.
And whatever can make you get a high grade.
Yeah. Well, I suppose PhD is always looming somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So what was the most enjoyable part of the studies for you so far? Obviously, you're not finished yet, halfway through almost for both of you. What have you enjoyed the most? It could be, anything. So based on just your own experience about the course, obviously, but Hai Tian?
I'll probably say that it's like when I was first, like when I entered the lab for the first time, I have literally like no idea what I'm gonna do. And I was like quite panicking at that time. But my supervisor just told me that just come down and he assigned a postdoc student to basically help me to do everything. Like he supervised that student supervised me and helped me pretty much managing all the things and introduced the entire lab to me, and it's like babysitting. So
I was thinking more like a mentor, but I suppose babysitter works too.
it's really helpful, and yeah, I'm no longer panic after that. So yeah, they're like pretty much everyone in my team is like very friendly and they help each other and they do the work together. Like it's like a big
How many
family.
people in your team?
It's like 12, 13, something
12?
like that. Yeah. But we do have a collaboration with Gina's lab, so it's like 30, 40 people.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
What about you, Gina? What's the most enjoyable thing so far for you?
Actually, I have a quite similar experience with Hai Tian. I guess until now, I really enjoy my lab work every day. I don't feel panic when I have a lot of lab work to do, but sometimes I do feel panic for my academic assignment. But I guess it feels really good to be in the lab when everyone is very friendly and they really treat you they really babysit you and they help you everything. Especially I guess um especially when we are in the lab, you don't feel people are competing each other. We're all together as a whole. We're a team going towards one goal. Yeah, I really like that feeling. As Hatin just mentioned, our labs are collaborating. Like we're doing a big project, and our labs share different parts of that. So yeah, I think that's how we are doing research in Melbourne Uni, because we have all
Yeah,
these different research institutes here. So all the institutes are actually collaborating. Yeah.
yeah. I think it's one of the things that some of the students might be a little bit concerned about, is that they've never done research before. So how do they know they want to do research? I think that's sometimes, and they might be a little bit nervous about actually taking that step, because for most students they've only done like small projects, for example. Some might be research, some might not be, and mostly it's coursework. So if they're taking on this degree, if they do decide to apply for this degree, part of it is coursework, so they're familiar with that format. But it's a year and 1/4, so sometimes for certain students, being thrown into a lab, like Hai Tian, he'll be a little bit nervous on where do I start, where's everything, and it's really great to hear that you actually get additional support, even though it's not part of the whole degree itself, but it was just something that the lab just other people that are there to sort of help you out. Just was really good to hear.
I want to mention that so for my supervisor, he's really kind. Like even for this COVID-19 crisis, he holds a lab meeting with all the members in our lab, talking about like how to deal with pressure, how to deal with stress, and take care of your mental health and something like that. Yeah, I really appreciate they're really taking care of us instead of just being an academic supervisor.
Yeah, no, that's really good to hear. Actually, that's really, really good to hear. So that was, the most enjoyable. So what's the biggest challenge for you so far? Or maybe you haven't had it yet, but what's the biggest challenge for you? I know that you both did undergraduate at Melbourne, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so you did your bachelor's degree. So the transition from undergraduate to graduate, would be probably a little bit different. But what would be the biggest challenge for you?
I would say it's the time management is the biggest issue. It's really hard, like at the beginning, it's really hard to find a perfect balance between the coursework and the research. Since my supervisor is not like that pushing to me, he's like, as long as you finish the project like before you graduate, it's fine. So I need to arrange everything pretty much by myself. It's like, I would say it's like a PhD life, student's life, pretty much.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think in addition to that, because sometimes we may feel very stressful when everything stack up together. You have the assignment due, and then you need to do the experiments. You even have a lab presentation coming, and when all those things are being together, for me personally, I am very likely to feel very stressful. But my suggestion for you guys is always leave some time for yourself to work out and do some exercise. So that really helps you to relax. Like in our lab, sometimes during our experiment time, because there are some like incubation times that you don't need to do anything. Our lab will together go to the gym and and do some workout together, yeah, and then go back to the lab, collect the samples, and continue the experiments. Yeah, and that's how I find everything is going balanced.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue to the next question, actually, which is the last question I actually have for you. But before we move on to the other questions that people have actually put in today, what would be your advice for anyone that's looking at applying for this course? Either, what should they be considering beforehand, or what should they consider about the course right now when they're actually doing it? Like if they might find it really hard when they're going through certain parts of the course itself. What would be your advice to them?
I would say there's one advice that make sure that you find a perfect supervisor that fits you properly. Like imagine if you need to do something that you don't like or not interested in for 2 years, that will be really panicking time. So yeah, luckily my supervisor is doing like some protein work that I'm like very interested in it. So no need to suffer and struggle.
Yeah, supervisor is really, really important. I guess probably you can talk to as many supervisors as you want and choose for I can't say the best one, but the one that you feel the best. Like you can also talk to the other students in the lab. And I think for Melbourne Uni student, we have the open day for not only for Melbourne Uni students, right, but also for other students. You're welcome to attend those open days. So where you can chat to your potential supervisors and also other research students in his or her lab. So for me, I actually attended the Bio 21 open day and had a little chat with my current supervisor. That really helped a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why the process of actually applying is actually quite important, because and sometimes it can take a long time, is that to find that right supervisor. So sometimes I think students that are applying, they go, oh, I really want to get a supervisor. I really want to get a supervisor. But I think what maybe they should be focusing on is that I want the right supervisor for me. And I think what the supervisor is trying to do is, when you contact them, is to find out that you're the right candidate for them as well. So it's a bit of a two-way process. And this is very much what they do at a PhD level as well. I think the benefit, as I said, just for potentially for you guys, is that if you were applying for a PhD afterwards, you already all know the academics in the area, and getting support from them, because they already know you, is probably going to be a little bit easier, rather than for students that are coming from outside the university and applying for a PhD directly. Because I think, once again, what you were talking about, Hai Tian, was the risk of having a supervisor for 2 years, or a project that you don't like for 2 years. A PhD would be for 4. So It's advertised as 3, but no one ever finishes. Sorry, 4 years. So I think, yeah, finding the right supervisor, I think that would be why it's structured the way it is. A few different questions here. I think it's in regards to finding supervisors. I think it's probably supervisors are willing to take students, and I can answer some of these just quickly as well. Supervisors are happy to take students in the upcoming semester because I think a good part of it will become online. So I think getting supervisors on board for a later part, once again, is more important about what your research interests are, and if it's aligned with that academic. I think, once again, your chances would be much better if that was the case. Also, in regards to the work experience as well, I think the research project is what students would be undertaking in the research project, because it's not like an internship, because that's not the kind of degree that it is. This is a biomedical degree, so it's a research project that you'll be doing. That's why it's such a large part of it. And PhD is ultimately, one of the main goals for students that undertake this degree as well. Some students choose not to go on to PhD afterwards because they feel that may be enough for them to actually pursue employment in a lab of some description. And if that's the case, that's absolutely fine. But we do find that many students do look at a PhD at the end of their master's degree. In regards to scholarships as well, I need to sort of advise you, we don't have any scholarships for the Master of Biomedical Science. The PhDs, we do have for PhDs where they do have stipends and fee waivers as well. But keep in mind that to get into a PhD, it is very, very competitive, particularly at the Faculty of Medicine, Dentistry, and Health Sciences. Your grades need to be stellar. Something to keep in mind for you guys as well. But unfortunately, no scholarships for this degree at this point in time. The university do have accommodation scholarships, so you can check to see if you're eligible for that on our website. I think I actually spoke to Hai Tien earlier on in regards to this, but do either of you work? Do either of you work?
No.
No?
Casual work, like a private tutor.
Casual work, like part-time work.
Yeah, I do private tutor to university students. Yeah.
Yeah. How much do you find that? Can you balance that very well between part-time work and your research and your studies as well? Because how do you find that?
It's not too hard actually, because for me, I always push myself to spend the whole weekend not doing research. I really need to break, otherwise I can't go back to the lab and focus on my own research again. So basically, during the weekends, normally I will spend one day doing some work like tutoring students, and then the other day I will just relax. I go out for a walk, something like that. Yeah, I guess we all need to relax, because I don't think for any students who are interested in doing this degree cannot manage his or her study well. I guess we can all, it's quite easy for us to manage our study, but it's not that easy for us to keep our mind healthy and keep life balanced. Yeah, so I always push myself to relax during the weekend. Yeah.
I think for students that are looking at doing full-time study, because that's what you guys are doing as well. If you're looking at part-time work, you'll probably have to be cautious about the workload, what it's like, because you've actually never done this before, particularly if you're doing coursework, and then when you transition to a research project, because you probably have to fall in line with the timing of when your experiments are and what your lab times are and how your supervisor wants you to work. So you probably, if you are doing any kind of part-time work, will probably have to be either in the evenings, but then sometimes your research goes into the evenings as well. But mostly weekends, I would think, and it has to be fairly flexible. So I think it's just the nature of the experiments that you end up doing. If you're leaving it to culture and then coming back for it like about 7 hours later, then it makes it quite hard for you to plan work in those times, I think. There's a question here, I can answer this as well. there is no guarantee pathway into a PhD. I'm sorry. I wish there was, and I'm sure these two here probably wish there was, but it's a competitive process, and you really do have to do as well as you can. The Master of Biomedical Science will allow you a chance to do really well in this degree, and for your grades to be based on just this degree, which is what Haitian was talking about just before. So there's no guaranteed pathway into a PhD, I'm afraid. One of the questions was, can you guys explain about how you went about choosing your supervisors? Apart from, I think, Gina, you kind of went on a sneaky open day at Bio21, is that right?
Yeah, and also because my supervisor was my one of my lecturers during the bachelor's courses. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed his lecture. Yeah,
well, this is quite helpful that you actually know them as well. What about you, Haitian? How did you go about finding or contacting the supervisors?
Well, actually, I didn't manage to get a supervisor at the very beginning, but I did what's that called? The undergrads. There's a research project. There's a mini research project in undergrads with Gina's supervisor, and Gina's supervisor actually like refer me to my current supervisor. So luckily, he's in the same field, and I'm quite interested in it as well.
Yeah, that does happen quite a bit, because sometimes sometimes when you're applying, when you contact these supervisors, they might go, actually, depending on how much time they have, they might say, actually, your research interest doesn't align with mine. But what I do know is that my colleague here might be more aligned with your research area as well. So sometimes they do referrals as well. That's true. Another question was, do the supervisor look at your grades and look at primarily, or look at just your grades? Not exactly. So the supervisor doesn't really look at your grades. They look at your research interest, because at the end of the day, they have to sort of supervise you for a year and 1 quarter. When you apply, the faculty assesses you based on your grades before you can actually get, so that's how it sort of works for this course. The other question, sorry.
So I wanted to point out that the supervisor will actually look at your academic transcript. Like, they don't care about the grades for all the subjects, but they will check if you have done the subjects that are related to the research project. And my supervisor especially cares about that, the specific subject that he teaches.
He seems very specific about that subject. I think because essentially for you to get to the stage to actually contact the supervisor, you technically already academically eligible for the course, I think. So we would already pre-assessed you for that first part. And then when you contact the supervisor, technically the supervisor already knows that you're academically eligible. Now they just want to see if your research sort of fits, and can they sort of work with you for a year and 1 quarter, and if they have space in that project. Another question was, is that a cat, Haitian?
Yeah,
that was a cat. Yeah, that was a cat.
Yeah.
So yes, Angela, that was a cat. That was a cat.
There was another cat behind.
There was another cat. Is there a coursework option? I think I already covered this in the presentation. There's a coursework part, and then there's a research part to it as well. Do you need any research experience prior to applying for the course? No, you do not. There's cats everywhere. No, you don't need to have research experience. You can apply straight from a bachelor's degree. What are different research components? Well, the question was, and you guys can answer this as well, how are the research components of the subjects throughout the year? Are they different projects, or are they the same project over the one time, just different components?
Same project.
Yeah,
sorry?
For me, it's the same project, like a big project throughout the entire 2 years period. Yeah,
I think that would generally be the case, I think.
Yeah, and also sometimes the research component you choose on your study plan, it doesn't really perfectly match with the time you spend in the lab. It depends on what experiments you're doing and how you plan it. Yeah.
So how much contact hours do you think you guys actually have to like do, like coursework and then the research?
I guess for me, 70% research, 70%
70%.
plus.
How many
Yeah.
hours do you think in a week?
So for the first semester, when I was doing 3 subjects, I guess I spent around like 5 hours per day in the lab and 5 days per week. Yeah.
Right.
So every day basically, yeah.
So the other question was about English language requirements, which I can cover as well. If you're a University of Melbourne student, or if you studied within Australia as well, your undergraduate degree, you do not need to provide the IELTS. It's a simple one. What happens if you're eligible but you can't find a supervisor? I'm afraid you have to keep on trying. That is one of the parts. Like very much, it's almost like training for a PhD. When you're applying for a PhD, you really have to reassess. Is what I covered, what I said just before. The process of actually trying to get a supervisor is really important, and sometimes it can take some time. You really have to reassess how you're sort of engaging and corresponding with the supervisors as well. That is a cat again. That's very close. And Angela loves cats. That's great, but her mom doesn't approve. I'm so sorry to hear that. Maybe you can get a cat one day, or maybe visit Gina and Haitian's cats. They seem to have cats everywhere. The question is, how is biomedical science different from biomedical engineering? And that is a completely different area. So biomedical engineering is an engineering specialization where they focus on primarily the equipment or the process, and they would work with biomedical scientists as well, where they might be more across the areas of the actual sciences. So very different. You can probably find out more information about that. What kind of a GPA? I've already said it's about 65% average university equivalent. How much are the students expected to work during the semester? During the semester breaks. I'm not. During semester breaks, are you still studying, doing your research? You guys?
No, for this degree, it's not like it's not like the other courseworks. I remember in our offer, there's a condition that only 4 weeks of break is allowed for this degree. Yeah, each year.
Yeah. So it's very it's like a research, almost like a research kind of degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much.
That's good for people to know, I guess. I think another question was, how much wet lab research do you do? Well, I suppose it might depend on the research that you do, right? The research project.
Mine's like 100% wet lab.
Me too.
Right. Yeah. So I think it depends on the project.
Yeah.
Can you begin the masters and then find a supervisor later? No, unfortunately, we don't have that option. They need to have you locked in at the start. So part of your ability to get an offer would be the support from the supervisor. Sorry. What what is a wet lab? Is the question.
Well, it's like dry lab is like computational work, and the opposite one is pretty much the wet lab. Like you wear surgical gowns and yeah.
Yeah. Hang on. The other question here: does the coursework option need contacting a supervisor? So I think there are coursework and there's a research part. When you apply for the degree, you need to get a supervisor. So please don't think that they're two separate things. They are two components of one degree. So the degree itself, you need to get a supervisor at the start. The application deadline is coming up. So I believe it's the 15th of June. I need to double check, but I think it's the 15th of June or the 12th. I can't remember off the top of my head. And I suppose you would need to apply, get access to the student database, get an offer, sorry, get in contact with the supervisor, and that you need to do all those things. But application-wise, to make the application, the first initial step to see if you're academically eligible is coming up in mid-June. Is there any time that's too early to contact a potential supervisor?
Nope.
You guys?
It took me like 6 months or so to find a proper supervisor.
6 months. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So as I said, it does take some time. It does take some time.
It depends.
Yeah. So I'm just going to see if there's is the deadline for mid-year June for entry in semester 2, 2020? Yeah. So the deadline that I've already just said is for mid-year this year to start in July. Is the deadline. I think I've covered pretty much every single question that's actually on here, and there's a few questions and even questions about cats. Thank you for sharing your questions and your cats with us today. I think we will have to wrap up because we have actually gone over time. Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Hai-Tien, for sharing your experience and your insights on this degree. I hope you guys have enjoy the rest of the time that you're conducting your degree as well. I'm sure I'll see you very soon because we'll probably be back on campus at some point in time. And maybe one day I'll get to meet your cats as well.
Sweet.
Thank you all that's tuning in to join us. Hopefully we'll get to see you. And if you're looking at applying for mid-year this year, please look at starting an application as soon as possible. If you want to stay in touch with us, please check out our Facebook page for MDHS Facebook page. We have our own page and where you can ask more questions if you need to. Thank you, everyone. Stay warm, stay safe, and we will see you at Melbourne soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, you guys.
Bye.